After dropping game one to the Winnipeg Jets, the St. Louis Blues lost game two as well, moving to a two-game deficit in the first round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. So, with a two-game sample size, what trends are we seeing from the Blues? Today, we'll react to game two and continue to discuss the positive and the negatives of the Blues' performance in this series. All that and more today on Note News. Two games, two losses. Pretty frustrating, from a Blues fan perspective, for sure. But I think it's important to consider how competitive these games have been. First game, 5-3 loss, obviously, with one empty netter. So was a one-goal game. Well, actually, it was a tie game up until less than 2 minutes to go, and then quickly became a two-goal lead for the Jets off of a Kyle Connor goal and then an empty netter. So competitive for most of that one. Game two, a little bit of a different story. I thought the Blues hung with the Jets okay for a little bit longer than they did in game one. That was a much more sort of low scoring affair, a 2-1 final in that one and last night. And so a couple competitive games, but still the Jets have come away with the wins in both of these. So today we're going to obviously break down game two and discuss what that means for the series as a whole and how the Blues are looking both positively and negatively so far in the series. So that's all to come today. But we are a St. Louis Blues podcast. We go live twice a week. We talk all things Blues, and currently that is playoffs. We're here to talk about the Blues playoff run. As long as it's happening, we'll be here to break down games and recap games and sort of discuss how they're doing and what they need to do moving forward. Our plan is to do that after each game. So if you want to follow along with us and part of that discussion throughout the Blues playoff run, then the best way to do that is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that button if you haven't already. Also, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen on audio, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. And then we're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at NoNewsPod. Follow us on socials as well. Post a lot of great stuff over there. But Alec, two games. I want to get your main takeaway from game two. Obviously, we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. But after game two, what's your main takeaway? You can take this however you want. General thoughts and feelings after two games. Main takeaway from the series or the game last night.
Just so frustrating. Just really, really frustrating two games. Two games that they absolutely could have won and really put up a really good effort, I think, in both games to beat a tough Jets team, the best team in the National Hockey League in the regular season. They're playing with them. It's just, especially I really hate to totally pull a red card or whatever of some ridiculous goals. But I mean, really, from my viewing of this series so far, it feels like two, what I would say fluky, or you could say lucky, or maybe just an odd puck bounce is perhaps the best way to put that. Goals have been all the difference. And ironically, they've both come from Scheifele, but his goal in the first, I think it was their first goal of the series, where Suter puts a stick out, Binnington gets in position, everyone's in the right place, but instead of the shot getting blocked, it takes a weird bounce off of the stick, a weird bounce off of Binnington, and goes in. And then in game two, Scheifele admittedly makes a great move to get in
Sure.
on was it Tucker? I can't remember who he was skating with, but he makes a great move to
Last
get
night?
in. Yeah.
I think it was Letty who blew a
Okay.
tire on that one.
You're right. Yep. You're right. Makes a great move on Letty, admittedly, and gets a one-on-one on Binnington. And Binnington makes the save, but then Jimmy Snuggerud's body comes careening in to lay a hit on Scheifele, and it just timed it up wrong, and his foot was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and slides the puck and Binnington into the net, and just throw your hands up. I mean, I'm not even sure that I'm like blaming Snuggerud for that one either. Like he was trying to make a hit on someone going after his goalie. Just maybe could have come in at a better angle, but I don't know if his foot was like 5 inches to the left or right or whatever. I'm not sure that that puck bounces in. Like just two really unfortunate bounces have made
Yeah.
all the difference in the series because that would have put us up 3-2 when they scored that what was the equalizer. If they hadn't scored that early goal in game one, could have been a 3-2 Blues victory. And in this one, it could have been a 1-0 Blues lead into the last period of play, at which points that would have been the equalizer and headed it to overtime. So at best, you're looking at 1-1 on the series with a good chance to go up 2-0 in Winnipeg, which is like one of the most rowdy environments in playoff hockey.
Hmm.
But instead, just the hockey gods have been smiling on Mark Scheifele, and the Blues are suffering for it.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, in a lot of ways, lucky puck bounces for Mark Scheifele. To be fair, you got to give him the credit, as you said, for making a good move and getting into a high danger area like that and being able to put himself into a position where the ensuing chaos can result in the goal. Like that is, something that we can commend him for, sure. But um, yeah, just like both of those goals, kind of fluky, like you said, and so super frustrating. Blues not really getting the same puck luck right now, and like it's really tough because I think with the position that they're currently in, you got to be feeling about as good as you can feel if you're the Blues. I don't know, like what's your take on this? So after losing 2 games, after battling really hard, sticking with the Jets for most of both of these games and losing both of them, do you like do you feel encouraged by that because the Blues hung with the Jets and played solid competitive games in both of them and I think looked better last night than they did in game one? Are you encouraged by that, or is it discouraging that, even hanging with this Jets team and being competitive with them for at least 40 minutes out of the 60, uh, is it discouraging that that hasn't been enough to get it done?
So, I mean, despite my tone of voice and probably the look on my face, I actually am pretty encouraged about everything that I've watched so far. I actually do think, and especially like when we sort of pull back and look at the season as a whole, um, that this is actually like a really, really good outcome, all things considered.
Hmm.
But definitely, it's just so frustrating when it just hurts so much more when it was that close. It was one bounce away from
Yeah.
being at least an even series. That just really sucks. But yeah, definitely like the objective correct way that I'm looking at this is that it is actually very encouraging that they are really playing with the best team in the NHL in one of the most high intensity playoff environments, and they're playing great hockey for the most part. Still some lapses in discipline I think are showing out more in the playoffs than they did in the regular season. And still some like defensive miscues that weren't really showing up in the regular season. But again, like a loud arena like the Winnipeg Whiteout, that can happen, especially for a team that has no playoff experience. Some of the roster has no playoff experience. So yeah, I actually do think I really should be trying to get some more excitement in my voice here, but I actually do think that they have earned a lot of respect throughout this series, despite the fact that we're down 0-2, despite the fact that we, lost 2 close games. They made 2 games really close, and they were leading for a good amount of some of these games. The offense in game two specifically was really humming against the best defensive team in the league, against the best goalie in the league. I mean, still only put in 1 goal, so I guess you could, Hellebuck got his, and that'll happen. I think this was a game where definitely the Hellebuck effect was in full, was on full display. But I really think the offense still showed that they can play at that high level that we saw during the Jim Montgomery stretch of hockey, and during the win streak. While they're not putting up, they didn't put up the goals for this game. I really think a lot of the things that they did were done the right way, and were some really really good high danger chances. Especially a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud was just flying all over the ice. That's got to be something you have to be encouraged about. So there's a lot to get encouraged about in these losses, which I think I feel as good about these losses as I could possibly for them being playoff losses.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is that even though they're losses, it's not blowouts. It's not getting flattened for 60 minutes of both of these games. There was a little bit of that in sort of the third period of the first game, and then to a certain extent, maybe also last night. But or I guess last night in the third period as well. But yeah, I think I'm still feeling generally encouraged, generally optimistic. It is disappointing. It's frustrating the way these losses are coming for sure, and it's deflating as well in a lot of ways. But yeah, like you said, they are hanging with the President's Trophy winners. They are um, taking both of them to pretty much a one goal game. Like I know first game was 2 goals, but like empty netter there right at the end, and it's like these are close games and very competitive. And I think by far, maybe this is a little bit of bias showing, but I think this is the most compelling first round matchup in the sense that between a wild card and a 1 or 2 seed. The most compelling first round matchup that has a wild card in terms of it could go either way, and so I feel like that has me feeling encouraged. And then also just the fact that they'll be at home for the next 2 games where they've played pretty strongly over their run. Um, they look decent. They have looked pretty good at home. I think it was something like, what was it, 12 straight home wins or something to close out the season, or maybe not to close out the season, but at some point towards the end of the season, I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
Um,
it was to close out the season.
okay, cool. Yeah, like they've looked strong at home, and so I'm not worried. I'm concerned, but I'm not giving up hope by any stretch yet
For sure.
because we could be here, next week and feeling a lot better about this series. And so it's still early, and every game they play from here on out, there's going to be a bigger sense of urgency. They need to win 4 out of the next 5 in order to advance, and so it's an uphill battle for sure. But I think 4 out of 5, they just won 12 in a row. So like, I think it's completely doable for this team, and it'll be tough. It'll be difficult, and it's going to require some, I think, decently significant adjustments in order to get there because there's a couple things that are concerning, a couple things that I don't have an answer for right now when it comes to how the Jets are playing, and um, I'm looking forward to seeing how Montgomery and the Blues adjust in Game 3 when they have maybe a little bit more of an advantage being at home, and so I'm sort of reserving judgment or sort of being all the way in or all the way out until we see
Yeah.
how they look in the next couple games.
Yeah, for sure. To inject a little bit more optimism to sort of piggyback off your comments there. Like you said, we've been really good at home. Winnipeg is a rowdy playoff atmosphere, but hey, so is St. Louis. And I think we're going to need Blues fans to show up and get loud. But I mean, being in the building during that win streak, I know they sure can. And I expect them to do so, especially for this being the first time playoff hockey's back in St. Louis in 3 years. It's going to be a rowdy environment for them to play in. That plus Bennington with his back against the wall. I mean, even throughout this, these frustrating games, Bennington has been unreal, man. He has been absolutely exceptional. Again, in such high stress, high compete levels of games that I totally think he can at least steal one of these games back at home. And, then that gives us at least a 50-50 shot for the other home game. And of course, that's just how momentum in a series can take you far from there. Once if we can get it back even up, I'm still going to honestly choose to stick with my prediction that I think this series goes 2-2. And I'm hopeful here. Riding off the play of Jordan Binnington, and our top line has just been cooking right now, and I think the hockey gods' reign will stop at the Canadian border, and in St. Louis, I think we can see maybe a little bit less Mark Scheifele production, and perhaps that can lead to some home wins. So yeah, I'm actually like going into games 3 and 4, definitely like nervous, definitely very tense, but
Sure.
I mean, I'm also still super excited because both of these games were winnable games, so it sucked that they lost. But both
Hmm.
these games were winnable games, and that was on the road. Like
Yeah.
there's there's definitely a positive spin here. Um, that it feels a lot worse saying down 0-2, but I don't know. I really like our chances, and the bad man in net is probably going to have something to say here. So I'm excited as much
Yeah.
as I am nervous.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, like, I think I'd be singing a bit of a different tune if Bennington looked bad. I think his outstanding play. I mean, it's like I feel like outstanding is sort of the right word here. He's looked really good, and that alone has me feeling pretty optimistic about where this team can get and how they can respond. Because if he looked like a sieve back there and like was kind of hopeless, then I would probably be feeling
Ooh, a
hopeless too. You
sieve.
know?
Good
Yeah.
word.
Yes. Yeah. If he looked like Swiss cheese back there, then I think we'd be coming on here and being like, it's probably not going to happen. But he looks good, and I think you're right. He probably can steal a game in this series. Looked really, really good last night. He saved 20 of 22 shots on goal for a 909 save percentage, 0.89 goals saved above expected. Had another great game. A lot of big stops in that one. Even better than game one, I would say. Really, really good game from Bennington. And despite a scary moment, a scary collision, it was some physical net front hockey being played in that one. And good to know that it didn't really rattle him all that much, I think.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, Connor Hellebuck, the story really is like playoff demons with Connor Hellebuck, regular season champ, uh, really gets it done for the Jets throughout the 82 game regular season, but has his fair share of rough playoff history. Last night looked pretty good though. 21 stops on 22 shots on goal, a 955 save percentage, but only 0.57 goals saved above expected in that one. So I mean, overall, this was a really good game for goaltending. So yeah, I definitely agree. Bennington looked great, and will probably continue. I mean, he looks like playoff Bennett, right? Like he looks like he is locked in playoff mode and ready to go, and it's just a matter of getting the rest of the team on that same level. I think defensively more than
Mm-hmm.
anything, and Bennington was a highlight for sure. Another guy I want to point out as a highlight. Can we talk about Jimmy Snuggerud here? Because I think he had himself a fantastic game. I think he was probably the Blues' best skater
Yes.
last night. Um,
Yes.
he looked so good. He scored his power play goal with like less than 2 seconds left in the first period. I don't think I've ever yelled that loud, at least not this season. I don't think I've
Oh
I
my
like
gosh.
I stood up and yelled when he scored that one. It was a beautiful goal, really fantastic shot. And my dad texted me after he scored that. He was like, I had a feeling because he had missed one from that same spot not that long before that, and my dad was like, I had a feeling if he got the puck back, he wasn't missing again. And so he was not. So Jimmy Snuggerud, bit of a sniper, gets a good snipe against one of the best goalies in the world, and really,
Mm-hmm.
really great goal. And despite a rough defensive moment, obviously the puck bouncing off of his skating in to the Blues goal. Um, Despite that, I think he looked really good, and both offensively and defensively. Like he had some impressive plays winning a couple puck battles. I really liked his passing game last night in the neutral zone to sort of break the team out of the neutral zone and into the offensive zone. He made some fantastic passes that I was like, how did you even see that guy over there know where he was
Yeah.
going and get the puck to him at that angle? It was really impressive. Jimmy Snuggerud may or may not be ready for NHL hockey. I guess the sample size is pretty limited, but last night he looked ready, and so I really loved watching Jimmy Snuggerud play hockey last night. What did you see from Snug last night?
Yeah, totally echoing everything. He was one of the best players on the ice at 20 years old, I think, 21. I have to
21.
remember. He's 20. He's Gosh, that's so strange that someone's playing playoff hockey and I'm talking on a podcast about him and he's younger than me. But a 20-year-old
Get used to it,
forward
buddy.
looking like that in the playoffs. Yeah, old man. I mean, just so impressive. Everything that Snuggerud's been doing. I think ever since pretty much his first two periods of like NHL action, like his first two periods of that Detroit game, he looked super shaky, I think. But ever since then, that he like the nerves wore off. It's like the transition has been seamless for him coming from Minnesota, still playing against like bigger bodied guys. You know, NHL is a higher level, obviously, but like does not at all. The game just looks so slow for him, and that's one of those things that is so hard to describe and is so hard to find. It's such a rare talent, but that's how you know when someone is like has the potential to be legit. And I absolutely think Snuggerud has been playing incredible hockey. I mean, had like two or three great offensive chances in the first game that he created. None of them ended up going in, but had some just brilliant passes. I think that's the biggest thing is his hockey IQ, his hockey sense, and his
Hmm.
ability as a playmaker is like so far beyond I thought it could be even like next year.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. And then this season in the postseason, all of that is has been translatable like it's nothing. Like he hasn't even necessarily turned up his game for the playoffs because he's just been consistently great. And to do so again against such a big, like tough team is such a tough ask for a 20-year-old rookie that
Hmm.
I could not be more impressed with Snuggerud and his play throughout the season and the postseason. And I think yeah he's using his body so well, better than he like should know how to do, uh, at his size and at his age, and his stick handling is like just enough, and his creativity is also complements it perfectly to be just this really dangerous playmaker because the danger of his shot is there. But Snuggerud as a passer is not something that I had in this book, in my book on Snuggerud until recently. And I want to see more or Snuggerud and Thomas, honestly, because man, that was a great combo.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things is he kind of solidified his spot on the top line moving into the next game. Like he looked ready for that challenge. He definitely rose to that one. He led all blue skaters in expected goals, and it wasn't very close. He had 0.541 expected goals last night. The next closest was Braden Shen with 0.289. And then below that, Robert Thomas with 0.147 expected goals. So like it wasn't very close. Snuggerud was ripping some great shots last night. And then yeah, beyond that looked fantastic. Great hockey IQ, great like IQ in general. I don't know, intelligence. Like watching him being interviewed, he looked just like he belonged. I feel like so it was
Mm-hmm.
just it's exciting that it's really exciting to see him come up and have an immediate impact. Yeah, I continued to be impressed with the top line. Um, I think Buchnevich looked pretty good. Thomas looked pretty good again. A little bit quieter for both of them. Buchnevich had a rough defensive moment on the what wound up being the game winning goal. But just going back to this Snuggerud goal because kind of has been a theme for the Blues. So all four goals that they have scored so far have come on high shots, right? Robert Thomas's from the face-off circle, high glove side shot. Jordan Kyrou, that like pinpoint top left corner from deep. Sonny's shot was high as well, and then Snuggerud last night did it again, put it in a similar spot as Kyrou did, just from a different angle. So I mean, it seems like this is the area they have identified as the most likely spot they'll be able to score on Hellebuck. I mean, is it just a coincidence, or do you think we're really seeing a pattern to the way that the Blues are approaching, offense against Hellebuck?
For sure. And I think it's a really smart strategy that I expect that should be able to take them pretty far, because I think identifying any potential weakness on Hellebuck is absolutely something that you have to take advantage of on a guy like him. That on top of that, excuse me, the talent of the skaters on this team, with guys like Kyrou, with guys like Thomas, honestly, even like Kim Fowler and Justin Falk could be
I
two
was really
potential.
impressed with Cam Fowler.
Mm-hmm. I think could be two potential, if not X factors, then like could have an impact on the results of plays like that. Bolduc maybe, and then yeah, obviously Jimmy Snuggerud is another like sort of pinpoint, or has the ability to be a sort of pinpoint shooter. So I think it's something that plays to the strengths of this team, and is definitely something that I would love to see them continue to take advantage of.
Yeah, for sure. I think they did a really good job in general of it's tough because I think their offense improved in a lot of ways, but also continued to struggle in other ways. But just on this, while we're on the point of things that went well, I think they did a much better job of threatening closer to the net than they did in game one. They didn't really find themselves in high danger areas all that much, at least with like a legitimate shot at putting the puck in the net. But I think they were able to get a lot more shots off from mid-range areas, like around the face-off circles, than they were in game one. Like they were a lot hotter. Like the heat map looks a lot hotter for the Blues, closer to the net than it did in game one. And so I think they did a better job of getting themselves into a more threatening position to score goals. And I think it paid off for them decently well. Their shots on goal were way more balanced than they were in game one. Um, they just got to start, putting them in the net, which is easier said than done for sure. But anything else that you were encouraged by from game two?
I think the first period they came out offensively clicking on all cylinders, which again I think shows obviously didn't end up really resulting in much. But in terms of the good, I think the mental fight from this team is still there. And I mean, even down to like the final seconds
Yeah.
after Connor scored the eventual game-winning goal, they were still like fighting to the last minute. So I think the mental toughness for this team is really, really there, which is something that is super hard to find if you don't have it, and if you do, is something you definitely want to keep as long as you can. It's something that I think Jim Montgomery brings to this team, is
Hmm.
that mental battle. Again, like so many teams playing against the President's Cup winning team and going down a goal, with a minute left in the game, or going down two goals with like 2 minutes left in the game or whatever, that would be backbreaking. And even in oh, what was I watching? I was watching the Vegas Wild game, and there was like 30 seconds left in the period or something, and I don't remember which team it was, but both teams were just content to like let the clock run out and play to the third, and wait till the third period. It's never something I think you would see from this Jim Montgomery coach team, and so I really think that they're mentally like in the game at every moment, and on top of that, I think seeing their offensive, the way they came out firing out of the gate, was really encouraging too, because they've identified like how they need to win and what they need to do to win this series. And again, they've played with the Jets all the way each time. Just haven't been able to get it done, get those final shots to go in. But I really think they're approaching this series the right way. And it's really going to set up this team and this core for success into the future for this playoff run and for future playoff runs.
Yeah, sure. By the way, if any Blues fans are watching live, you have any thoughts, any takes, or any questions you want us to see or respond to, drop them in the chat. And then if you're watching or listening back later, there should be plenty of ways for you to leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. But I think I agree that their approach to this series is pretty close to what it needs to be. It's just the execution that's been the issue. And so let's start to break down what's been going wrong here. And I want to start off by talking about the third period, right? Because this has been kind of the big story through the first two games. Obviously, they were leading going into the third period in game one. They were leading 3-2. Um, Ended up being a 5-3 loss. And so they were really outplayed in that third period. And again, last night, they were outplayed, not to the same degree as in game one, but if you look at sort of the expected goals, how it measures up, the Blues kind of went quiet again in the third period, whereas the Jets were able to generate a lot more chances in the final frame. And so they didn't get flattened in the same way as they did in game one, but it's still concerning. And the big reason why is that this was a strength for the Blues throughout their hot stretch. They were unbeatable if they were winning, or if they were winning, or I think tied going into the third period. They were like, their record was fantastic. I think it was Jeremy Rutherford that I saw um, said this, so credit to him. And I might mess up the numbers a little bit, but on their run from the Four Nations when they went like what 19-4-3, they were 15-0-0 with a lead starting the third period. In games where they were leading in the third period, they were 15-0-0, and then in games where they were tied, they were like 3-1-1. And so, there was a little bit of a lower sample size for that one, but just really effective in the final frame. They were really able to close out games and outcompete opponents in the final frame. But that hasn't really continued, and this has been the difference in this series, is that the Jets have just, I don't know if I would say dominated, although maybe that would be the right word. They just really outplayed them in the third period. They have outshot the Blues 49-39 in the series, and in the third period they have outshot them 16-7. So it's a lot more skewed in the third, and then outscored them 4-0 in the third period. So credit to Jeremy Rutherford for those numbers as well. That's a huge issue. It's just seems like a lack of, maybe not lack of ability, but just a lack of execution when it comes to catching up to the Jets when they click it into another gear. It seems like they're just
Mm-hmm.
able. I think I pinpointed this in our previous episode, and if you want to get into our thoughts on game one, go check that one out. But um, the Jets are a team. They're a well-oiled machine, and so they're able to shift into another gear when they need to. I think the Blues are capable of doing that as well. They showed that. Uh, they proved to be really effective at doing that late in the season, and it's just been something that it's been a little bit harder to come by, are those adaptations that you make in game or game to game. And so when the Jets kick it into high gear in the third, the Blues just kind of can't hang on, at least so far. So what are you seeing in the third period that's been the cause of struggle?
Yeah, it feels like that, like you said last episode, they're kind of getting away from their identity of this really defensive and physical team. It feels like they're really trying to do a little bit too much. I think in the first game it was maybe an issue of deployment, of seeing perhaps not enough of your big guys out on the ice. And I think in this game mostly that was resolved and settled, but it's more so like it felt like once the Jets started to click that the Blues sort of started to lose that mental battle and felt like they had no chance of playing against this Jets team, and they were just like struggling for air, trying to come up and, hope Binner could come up with the save, and really like taking their foot off the gas offensively too. I think that's the key to this feeling of being overwhelmed and overpressured, is that they're letting up on the pressure that they're putting on the Jets. And so all that means is that they can is that their opponents can take over if the Blues aren't going to have any offensive ice time in the third period. And so because of that, I think um, I think that there's really just a feeling of frustration and a feeling of worry when these third periods roll around, because they offensively and like with the lead try and not as much or not, maybe not try, but don't as much play the style of hockey that we've become used to. They came out the game offensively, um, throwing stuff around at the net and trying their best, and also like throwing some heavy hits. I mean, there was one point in the game where Kyrou got absolutely obliterated, but then,
Yeah.
got up, made the play, got on over to the bench, and then Braden Shen, like 30 seconds later, just detonates one of the Jets players. So, like, I think that they really sort of shied away from hits and shots in the third period, and to me, that's letting your foot off the gas offensively and trying to do too much and playing scared. Because I don't think that's how you're going to win games. I think it's going to be sticking to what worked, and what worked was playing offensively threatening hockey.
And it seems like some mental issues too, just like lapses. I mean, just to go back to the point of the defense, like defensive lapses that they're just getting bitten for. And I mean, credit to the Jets for taking advantage of those moments, right? All good teams do. And in this game, it was Kyle Connor scoring the game winning goal again. And so I think what you saw here is if you watch that play back, uh, the Blues defense at the beginning of that play is set up decently well to begin with, and they've had this issue before. They abandon their net front presence. If like when the puck goes behind the net, they kind of abandon their net front presence and send a couple skaters down there when maybe they should only be sending one. Or if they do send two, there's no one moving in to cover up that area. It just seems like again a mental lapse, perhaps. I mean, it's just there are too many skaters going back behind the net, and then the front of the net is compromised. I mean, winning puck battles is important, and that is what decides a series for sure. But with a team like the Jets that gets so much of their scoring from those high danger areas, and capitalize on those high danger chances, defending the net might be more important than winning that particular battle. Um, just get Bennington some help, and so that's what I saw on the game winning goal. But yeah, just seems like defensive lapses in the third period, and then taking the foot off the gas, as you said, and for whatever reason, um, whether they're tied or leading or down, it's just they can't haven't been able to keep up quite yet. Um, yeah, and then I want to talk about the Winnipeg's top line here, because this has also been kind of the big difference maker. And we've already sort of discussed the uh, realness of Mark Scheifele's goals. We don't need to really relitigate that, but the top line has been the difference maker for Winnipeg, right? That's where their scoring is coming from. And this is something that we broke down on our series preview episode. We liked the Blues' ability or their standing sort of to match up with the Jets' depth, right? Those lower three lines, the Blues' bottom nine forwards. I think we like how the Blues look compared to them. But the top line is the difference maker. You've got Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Alex Iafallo, I believe, on the other wing. And so that line has been generating a lot of scoring. And it's not that our top line can't hang with them offensively. Like, that's where our best offense is coming from, is Robert Thomas and Now Jimmy Snuggerud looks really good. It's just that defensively, the Blues are having trouble finding an answer, having trouble shutting them down. And I mean, it's not for lack of trying, right? Bennington has done his part. He has denied Kyle Connor so many times. It's just the defense isn't showing up here. They haven't really done their part in the same way. Um, and I think a big part of this is defending the rush. Winnipeg has had way too many breakaways. Um, they get into high danger chances so much off of those breakaways. And it just seems like defensively the Blues don't have an answer for it. And sometimes it's an issue like that Mark Scheifele goal took place uh, right after a pretty, I guess, poorly executed line change by the Blues, and so that was tough to see for sure. Um, but yeah, it just seems like they don't have an answer for Winnipeg's top line defensively right now, and so Alec, what do they need to do differently? Fix it.
I mean, we knew that even like in our series preview, we said that this top line was going to be dangerous and was going to score some points, and they absolutely have. Honestly, like I still think it's kind of a Josh Morrissey problem. Like if you look at the
Hmm.
points put up by their top line, Morrissey has an assist on almost all of them. And I think he's been really manipulating the space a lot better versus the Jets sort of just repeatedly throwing their top line at the Bennington wall until it goes through. Um, yeah, I mean, it really sucks having Dylan Holloway gone. I just if Holloway plays, this series is 1-1 at worst. Like
Let me ask you
unironically, I
this:
think
if Holloway was playing, would he be the highest scoring number 81 in the series?
wow, that's a great question. I'm not sure about that, but I think he'd be the highest scoring blue, and I think
Yeah.
I think it would be 2-0 Blues if Holloway were playing. Like I seriously think he's that good into this type of Jets team.
Hmm.
So sure, why not? Why not just go all the way there? But um, yeah, I think it's losing puck battles behind the net. I think that's coming from guys like Sonny, like Shen, honestly Snuggerud sometimes. I mean Thomas has lost a couple. Like kind of the blame is pretty equal to give around for the puck battles down behind the net, which is where they do a lot of their damage. So that's one big thing. Number two, I would say, is locking down Josh Morrissey, like I said. And honestly, that's just kind of a matchup thing where I feel like most of the time it's like it's like a smaller forward, like a Walker or I don't know, someone who just doesn't really have a chance. So I'm not really sure what necessarily is the solution there. But then the other thing I would say um, is like not being afraid to throw hits in the defensive zone. It feels like they really like to hit in the offensive in the neutral zone, but in the defensive zone, they take a much more passive approach to try and maintain that defensive structure in front of the high danger net or in high danger chances, which worked in the regular season. But obviously, this Jets team is really good at getting the puck to that area. It feels like the best way, at least in my viewing, of how to stop that is to stop the puck carrier from having the puck. And the way to do that is to stop the puck carrier from being on his skates. So I'd really like to see a guy like Braden Shen, who's been more of a human wrecking ball on ice than an actual hockey player, as you texted me the other night.
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to see him do that in the defensive zone. Like
Hmm.
instead of Jordan Kyrou skating in to try and lift a stick and take the puck when Scheifele is pinned up against the wall, I want to see Jordan Kyrou going in at 20 miles an hour and I mean, okay, you don't want to board their 1C because that's just dirty and good way to injury, but
Yeah.
you can take an angle or whatever or hit him at like 60% so that you're not entirely or whatever like I guess I don't want to mean to litigate too much the details of the percentage of hit you're throwing here, but like be more physical in the defensive zone because I really think they're relying more on finesse and on sticks to break up the passes and such, when I don't think that's how you stop this Jets offense. I think it's like skating with them and using your body to pester and to be annoying, because they have all the
Hmm.
skill in the world. But if the Blues skaters can just serve as sort of a defensive wall on ice, skill can only take you so far. If you can't go through, you can't go through. And that's what we need from our defensemen and from our, especially our centers.
For sure. And it's part of why it's so confounding is because the Blues were really effective at limiting high danger chances and high danger goals in the regular season. They were one of the best at it. I think looking at their 5-on-5 stats right now, they were the fifth best team when it comes to high danger chances against per 60. They only allowed 9.6 high danger chances against per 60. They were one of the best at limiting high danger goals as well. They were, let me just count it up here. It looks like seventh in high danger goals against, seventh best, 1.12. And I think a big part of that was limiting rebound chances. They were really good at that. Um, but another thing, too, is just like solid defensive positioning. And I feel like the nature of the Jets offense has sort of thrown a wrench in that. Um, make it it's a little bit faster paced, and kind of a well-oiled machine. As I said, they really like to get to those high danger areas, but they also will take shots from the face-off circles, and if not there, they'll take it back at the corner of the blue line. And so um, it's fast and it clicks, and they are a team that really emphasizes, I don't know, like cleanness, if that makes sense, just like really crisp and clean style of offense. And so it's fast and it's hard to defend for sure, but it seems like they've just done a really good job of baiting the Blues out of their defensive positioning that's brought them so much success. I mean, Philip Broberg comes to mind with that, but I think he's been okay in this series. I think Dylan Holloway was a big factor in that, and so obviously his loss is tough for a lot of reasons. I think not playing Matthew Joseph, he's a solid defensive forward. You know, he doesn't provide much offensively, but defensively, he's not bad, right? That was one of the benefits of bringing him in, was his speed and his defense, and so um, he didn't play last night. And then not having Colton Parayko at 100%, like really, if we're being honest, yes, he's back, um, but he did come back a little early, I think. So not that that's an excuse, but it's um, he just hasn't looked himself, I think, and so some personnel struggles in that regard. But it does seem like the nature of the Jets offense has done a good job of sort of neutralizing the Blues defensive structure in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I honestly like, it kind of feels like the way that they're going to have to beat this Jets team is almost like to give them a taste of their own medicine here. It's going to have to be like our top line, Thomas, Snug, Kyrou, Neighbors, and Booch and Shen, like those six players in whatever permutation it is on the night, to do some damage. And then the rest of the roster is going to have to play physical, going to have to throw hits more than the Jets do, but then play defense like the Jets do. And then it's Bennington versus Hellebuck. And I think that Snuggerud has been offensively creating. Thomas in game one played excellent. I thought Kyrou played well in game one also, but Kyrou had a quiet night, and Buchnevich hasn't really had an impact yet. I mean, I thought he had a pretty good game one, but yeah, I really really hope, or not hope. I really really think that we absolutely have the ability to. I mean, I really honestly expect. I'd be shocked if it was a sweep at this point. Even though we're
Oh
down
yeah.
0-2, like I would be absolutely floored if the Blues got swept. I do not foresee that being the case at all. And as I said at the top of the episode, I'm still pretty confident in this series getting neutralized here, getting returned even. So yeah, let's see what we got here. And I think giving the Jets their style of hockey. I know we don't have the defensemen that they do. That's perhaps where that comparison doesn't hold up. But hey, they don't have the defensemen that we do in terms of like offensive contributions. Like Justin Falk actually has been pretty good in terms of the expected goals metrics so far. So with all things considered,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just yeah, I made my point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think giving the Jets a taste of their own medicine, it feels like that's what they tried to do to us. What the Jets tried to do to the Blues last night, sort of bringing the the physicality back to the Blues after the Blues kind of came out swinging in game one, and so it was a really physical game. The Blues played a little bit less physically. I think they probably just didn't want to give too many easy penalties. It seemed like they were playing it safe in that regard, and not afraid to throw hits around by any means, but just a little bit less physical, a little bit cleaner play. It felt like. But yeah, in terms of giving the Jets a taste of their own medicine, let's talk about offensively because I think that's a much better or a much more accomplishable task than trying to play defense as well as the Jets do. Um, so I mean, really, the Jets just keep generating a ton of high danger chances. I mean, in this game they had more high danger chances than they did in game one. This is the secret to their offense. And only three high danger chances from the Blues last night. And so Monty had a quote after the game. He used the term net hunger. They just don't have the same net hunger that the Jets do right now. Only one rebound attempt at 5-on-5. And so do you think they can I don't know, like transition to a style of offense that grants them more high danger chances, or do you think they have a better do you think they have better odds of finding some offensive success in the mid range area, which is where they took a lot of their opportunities during the regular season?
Yeah, it just feels like breaking through and getting high danger chances on this Jets offense is going to be, you're not going to have necessarily the quantity that you need. And that's where I kind of like you said, sort of the medium danger chances that you could fire just would give you a higher percentage look, because also I think doing so from a medium danger area like that gives more offensive pressure from guys like Cam Fowler, Justin Falk, and Colton Parayko, and Philip Broberg, who all are good enough shooters, especially if you can sort of have them activate and pinch in more to get involved on the play offensively, and have a guy like Zach Bolduc or whatever back to cover defensively. I really think that can give you a different look and a different option that could lead to some redirections out in front from a Neighbors, from a Bolduc, from a Shen, playing physical, or just beat Hellebuck, and there's always a chance. If you're trying to create high danger looks, they've been really good at blocking shots. And so I think that if you can manipulate the space, it's just easier to create the lower danger chances. The other thing I forgot to mention earlier is, where is Zach Bolduc this series? It feels like he should be an absolute wild card that can be unlocked here, but it feels like he's not getting the ice time that he deserves at this point. Like I this is the one um lineup thing that has actually had me pretty worried, is I really think that we have not seen enough Zach Bolduc. I think he could absolutely be having a phenomenal, phenomenal series with the way that he plays defensively and offensively. Like when they went on their first power play last night, Zach Bolduc didn't get on until there were 30 seconds left in the power play. What are we doing? Obviously, it ended up working out in a power play goal, but that was pretty much entirely just Jimmy Snuggerud being him.
Yeah.
Where is Zach Bolduc? Like, it feels like that's a button that they haven't pushed, and that they're like afraid to push for some reason. It looks like I honestly, like, I really think he should be getting more ice time. But in terms of offensively, what they can do, I think activating the defense more and having forwards back to cover, because they have a bit more speed. Guys like Walker, Bolduc, Joseph, etc. Sort of back to what we were seeing at the outside of the 12-game win streak.
Hmm. Yeah, and it seems like another. I mean, you pointed out speed there. Maybe bring Matthew Joseph back into the lineup because what we saw in this game, at least one thing that was sort of glaringly obvious to me was just pretty poor transition game, right? Transitioning out of the defensive zone and then also transitioning into the offensive zone. They just weren't able to do it cleanly at a consistent enough rate to find any decent offense, right? It felt like once they could get set up, they had some really good chances. Like you look at um, the Corsi sort of percentage at 5-on-5. I think that went the Blues' way last night. I think they sort of had the advantage in that regard. It's like when they can get set up, they're able to generate a few solid chances, and we saw that a couple times last night. It's just especially late in the game. Really, this goes back to those third period struggles. It's just so much dump and chase hockey. They're just not able to get into the offensive zone cleanly. And if you have any thoughts here, let me know. But like, it's probably some combination of just the offense maybe not clicking as much as it should, but also the Jets just defending really well at the blue line and in the neutral zone as well. They're a great defensive team, and so it's like clean zone transitions are going to be hard to come by. But um, there's just been so much dump and chase hockey, and that's just not the offensive style or strength of any line beyond maybe the fourth line. Like Toropchenko is a really decent forechecker, um, but beyond Toropchenko on that line, I think you texted last night. Whenever Toropchenko can just decide to become Connor McDavid at times, and it's really funny to watch him just click into that mode. But yeah, like beyond Toropchenko on the fourth line, you don't like forechecking and sort of dump and chase hockey. That's not really the style. I mean, maybe the second line when Holloway was in there, right? Um, but it just seems like pretty poor transition game. Do you think this is an offensive issue or just the solid defense of Winnipeg just meeting them up there and making life really hard for them?
Um, so are you saying, do you think it's more like Winnipeg's doing or more our doing?
Yeah, just sort of what is the recipe of these two components that you think is leading to struggles in transition?
I think it honestly more is Winnipeg. I think they're really good at defending the neutral zone, which is obviously where transition happens.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that they've been pretty good at defending the blue line as well. It feels like, yeah, like the top line is able to usually get in with the skater or something, but pretty much outside of that, it hasn't been much. And also, I think what Winnipeg does really well is that they limit the defenseman ability to move the puck up the
Hmm.
ice. They really take away pretty much all stretch pass options and only allow the defenseman to get up to a forward who then they play the trap really well, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, for that reason, I think there is actually an ability to set up a cycle on them to get a faster skater like a Kyrou, a Thomas, or something, or even like down the depth chart, like Bolduc has shown some ability to get around guys, to gain the zone and then have a follower to support, but like getting through the bodies of Winnipeg's large defensemen is definitely a big ask here. And so I do think it's more on
Hmm.
just Winnipeg's ability to shut down the neutral zone, which is why we've seen them be so aggressive in throwing hits in the neutral zone. But I think if they can continue to perhaps blow up the structure by blowing up the puck carrier, that's just hard when you're on offense. But it's going to take like essentially someone with really good body control, like maybe a Jimmy Snuggerud could get good at this. That can use enough body control to get around a defender, gain the blue line, and then you can start to um, set up and maintain offensive zone pressure.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like a lack players that can of players that are good in transition, right? Robert Thomas is really good at it. Jordan Kyrou is really fast. He can carve his way through the neutral zone, and yeah, like Jimmy Snuggerud for sure. It's just like and maybe it's a communication issue or something. It just seems like they're having a tough time orchestrating it as a unit, which has been the issue. And something that I really liked how they did during their 12 game win streak was in transition. Their offensive zone entries looked really clean and they looked really threatening entering the offensive zone. Like three people entering at the same time and just sort of creating offense that way. Again, we can keep beating this dead horse. That was a real strength of having Holloway and Kyrou on the same line. And so, yeah, it doesn't seem like a lack of talent, just maybe a lack of being able to orchestrate it as a unit. That's been really difficult. And yeah, I think it is more just the Jets being really solid defensively, especially in the neutral zone. And I mean, another thing I want to point out and discuss here are special teams, because this sort of transition issue made its way to the power play last night as well, especially later on in the game, um, when they had a couple chances towards the end to, on the man advantage to tie things up or take a lead. It just seemed like the power play was struggling to both enter the zone and get set up at times, but also when they were, it just seemed like they were taking way too long looking for the perfect shot. They really just, I think, need to generate more quantity chances and not just wait. Yes, Hellebuck is a great goalie, and so um, it's tough to score on him. But I think the secret to scoring on Hellebuck, and maybe something I think they should try or do a better job of, is generating quantity chances and not just waiting for the perfect shot, because it's not going to come against Hellebuck, right? Very rarely are you going to get the perfect shot. Yes, Jimmy Snuggerud got the perfect shot. Jordan Kyrou got the perfect shot in game one. Robert Thomas had a really great shot. It's just they're really hard to come by, especially against Hellebuck and especially against a Jets team that defends as well as they do. And so I just think they need to put the puck on net a little bit more. Um, Take chances, try something. I mean, do you think there's any, like, because the power play was, what was the final clip last
One for
night
four.
on 1 for 4? So not great. I mean, at least compared with game one, where they were like what, 2 for 3, and so still a limited sample size, but they definitely struggled a lot more last night. And so, what are you seeing on the power play that has been an issue, because they're drawing penalties at a decent rate. It's not for lack of opportunity, which it seemed to be during the regular season that was an issue, but they're getting the opportunities now. 4 opportunities last night and only converted one. So yeah, like, what are you seeing at 5-on-4?
Number one is not enough Zach Bolduc involved in the
Yeah,
play.
there you go.
Please
You've been beating
let the
beating
man
that
eat.
drum.
Yeah. But honestly, I think it's still that like getting set up and entering the zone that's been the biggest challenge against the Jets, is that they just defend the blue line so well, and don't really let you win, uh, or don't really let you enter the zone easily, which is a tough ask for this Blues setup, or this Blues unit, which is just not a very finesse heavy team. It's a much more power type of game, which just is not really conducive to a power play, at least not in that sense. I think another thing is that they were much worse on the face-off in game two.
Yeah,
They ended up winning only 46.3% of their face-offs, which is pretty surprising, but it's that's what it ended up being. So definitely, like, if you could, I don't know, figure out a way to get back to winning the faceoffs. I think the biggest drop offs were, let's see, I just had it up. Braden Shen when was had a really bad night in the dot. He went 5 for 13. Foxa and Thomas actually were really good. And then Sundquist only took 4 faceoffs, but lost 3 of them, which doesn't help. But yeah, Braden Shen was probably saw too much ice time, and especially as you said, not really doing a lot of offensive creation, just sort of skating around like a wrecking ball. Um, I think those two. I think not being able to break through the transition game, and then also the face-offs, really limited the ability of this power play.
yeah, yeah. It was beyond Snugger's beautiful goal again, chef's kiss. Beyond that, it did seem to be a struggle, and that's something that they're going to have to fix for sure, if they want to have a real shot um, in these next 2 games. On the other side of things, I think the penalty kill actually did look pretty good. Um, the Jets have a kind of I guess lethal could be the right word. A really good power play, really good power play unit. One of the best in the league. Had the best regular season power play percentage, and the penalty kill went 2 for 2 last night. And so they're what 5 for 6 on the series. So the penalty kill is showing up, and so I think that's been a bright spot for sure. They've also cleaned their game up a fair bit in game two. Only 2 penalties, both in the first period, and so not really giving the Jets those opportunities late in the game to go on the power play, and so their physicality seems to be coming in a much more disciplined way, I guess, which is I think a plus. Um, but the power play, it's got to be better. So yeah, they're going to be playing their next game on Thursday, April 24th, at home. This will be the first home game for the Blues. What do you like? Main takeaway, what are you looking for from the Blues in game three?
I think come out the same way they did game two is a big one. Playing very physical and setting the tone early, not going. I think if you can get the first goal in, that'd be huge for momentum because I
Mm-hmm.
think if this team can get some momentum going and can generate some energy in Enterprise Center, I think that's going to be enough to ride the wave to at least the third period and then lock it down in the third period, but not necessarily lock it down defensively. Keep the offensive pressure on, like keep
Yeah.
your foot on the gas, keep going, keep struggling, keep fighting because Hellebuck is not going to give up a lot of chances. So just keep throwing chances on net. I think is what you're going to need to see. So that's pretty much what I would be looking for is energy early and energy late, I guess.
Yeah, as much as they need to set a tone early, they also need to set the tone late because the Jets have been doing a whole lot of that. Um, yeah, I think this series is way more evenly matched than the record suggests, right? And I think everyone knows it too. Winnipeg, I think, knows it, and Jets fans, I think, know it as well. And um, I really like this quote from Monty from Montgomery post game. Winnipeg has made one more play than us both games. Shots are dead even, so they're just making one more play, and their best players are making them. That's what we've been talking about, right? It's just been one play in both of these games, a couple fluky plays, but their best players have definitely been the difference. And so, um, really, I'm looking for an answer against that top line, against Kyle Connor, against Mark Scheifele. Jordan Binnington, keep doing what you're doing. Don't change a thing. You're looking fantastic out there, um,
For real.
for real. So just defensively, I think this is the big thing. Is just defensively lock it down against that top line a little better, and so going into um, a couple home games for the Blues, going into Enterprise Center, they'll have the matchup advantage. Apologies for the the sounds around my apartment, but the Blues will have the matchup advantage. They'll have that last line change advantage at home for the next 2 games, and so hopefully they can have a better chance of combating Winnipeg's top line a little bit better. So really, that's the main thing I'm looking for is defend the rush against Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, um, because to this point they've had trouble quieting them down. Um, Kyle Connor has had a couple lethal goals and game-winning goals at that, and so that's what I'm looking for. But agree with everything you said as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So game three on Thursday, we'll be back to recap game three and preview game four, and hopefully have a whole lot to talk about beyond those 2 games. But a couple exciting home games here. I'm really hoping that the Blues can come out strong at home. They've been good at home, as Gabe in the chat said. We've been good at home. Let's get this win, and the momentum will carry us into game four. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, let's get this win. First home game. Series is far from over. A 2-0 deficit is one that you can completely come back against, and I think people are sleeping on the Blues a little bit. Yes, they're down 2-0. These have been competitive games, and I think they have a real good shot in this series still. So I'm not giving up hope. Alec, I don't think you are either. And so really excited to watch game three. And we will be here to continue to cover the Blues playoff run as long as it's happening. After each game, we'll provide an analysis like we did today. So if you want to follow along and be a part of that discussion, we'd love for our listeners and our viewers to be a part of that discussion. So join us live, comment in the chat what you're thinking about the Blues and all that. So we can make this more of a conversation here with all of you. So the best way to follow along and be a part of our playoff coverage is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate those that have done that already. That's the best way to help us out. Like this video as well. And then we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen to audio, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. We love to read those. And then follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. Post a lot of other great stuff over there. So follow us on all those platforms. Engage with us over there. We appreciate it. That'll do it for us this time on Note News. We'll see you next time. And let's go Blues. Get a big win at home.
Go Blues.